Welcome to Prospect Research Chat Bites, a podcast by and for prospect research professionals. This interview is part of our Career Curious series.
A great manager is someone who wants to see growth in their employee. They shouldn't be afraid if you're interested in another field.
I'm Jennifer Filla. Today, I'm talking with Marie Danieli, Assistant Director, Prospect and Donor Relations at Columbia Business School.
Hello, Marie. Thank you for joining me today on Chat Bites.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I was so impressed when I discovered that you were president of the APRA Greater New York chapter this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've really leveraged everything available to you to promote yourself and to advance your career, including the Prospect Research Institute. And I can't wait to hear your experience with taking a course. But let's start at the beginning. I'm curious, how did you find your way to working at your first nonprofit organization?
It was actually kind of began in undergrad. I was an English major and I was in my senior year and I really did not know what to do with my degree, especially since I wasn't looking to teach at all. So I was actually speaking with a fellow English major, and she said she was looking into graduate school, specifically in the library sciences field. And me, I had no idea that such a degree, especially master's degree, existed. And it really piqued my interest. And I looked into it, and I saw that there were a few paths you could take as a librarian with that degree. So I decided to apply to a few graduate schools with the program of library science and got into Queens College, and that's where I attended for my master's in library science. Initially, I was specifically interested in, around that time, prison reform and prisoners' rights. So I thought the path that I would take with the master's in library science would be a correctional services librarian, kind of like if you recall the movie Shawshank Redemption. But as I pursued my studies, I discovered that it would be extremely hard to get such a job at a correctional facility, especially in the New York City area. Actually, as far as I know, there's only one librarian who has such a role. It's a correctional services librarian of the New York Public Library. And I know that program is very much underfunded. So at the time, the role was occupied by someone named Nick Higgins, and I was fortunate enough to interview him for my master's thesis. But as far as other opportunities within the New York City area, there were none. And I don't have it in me to move away and leave my family. I can't see myself doing that. So I found during my studies an internship with the United Way of New York City. And I had definitely heard of the United Way, but the internship was for a prospect research position. And I had no idea what prospect research was. And that's when I met my future manager, Marla Berg. Right now she's at Autism Speak, but she introduced me to prospect research. And through that internship, that's how I fell in love with the field. And I said to myself, okay, I can definitely see myself doing this as a career.
Wow. So was it a paid internship? Just asking.
No, unfortunately, no. I did receive a stipend for kind of transportation and meals, but that was it.
But it got you in the door knowing that you could use your librarian degree in a related field.
Correct. Yeah, internships were pretty valuable to me. I also had one at Catalyst, which is a nonprofit organization focused on promoting equality for women in the workforce. And that was kind of a different role than prospect research because Catalyst has its own information center, or rather a corporate library. And I did a few projects really focusing on statistical data and analyzing that to be published on the Catalyst website. And I remember one project was for female CEOs in Fortune 500 companies. And I went through 500 different companies confirming each CEO and his or her gender. So that statistic was pretty bleak. I know right now, I was looking at it the other day, as of 2018, there are 25 female CEOs in a Fortune 500 role, and that's about 5% of CEOs on the Fortune 500 list. So that's pretty disconcerting.
But how fascinating that you were in a nonprofit, not in a prospect research role, but in another research role. So there's really, quite a few paths you could take with your skill set, and prospect research is among them. But I had never thought about a nonprofit having its own library or generating its own stats. That's kind of cool too.
Definitely. And actually the way it functioned, aside from publishing reports and other data, they had a number of corporate partners that they, worked together on a lot of different initiatives. And a lot of times the corporate partners had research questions and would reach out to the information center, and we would handle those. Kind of similar to fulfilling a research request from, like in prospect research in a shop.
Well, that's really neat.
Yep.
And how did you get involved with APRA?
Marla Berg, my manager at the United Way, she introduced me to APRA. And I was already familiar with a number of other professional organizations during my studies at Queens College. I knew there was ARMA, which is the records management professional organization. There's a competitive intelligence professional organization. So I had no idea there was one for prospect research. So I was able to secure a membership through the United Way. And I went to a few workshops, a few happy hours, and I was hooked.
It's the happy hours, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the first event I went to was a workshop on the IAPD, the Investment Advisor Public Database, and I had no idea how to analyze investment firms and hedge funds and all the assets under management and who owns what in each investment firm. So that was really, really helpful for me. So after that, I was like, I have so much more to learn about this field.
Well, when it covers like every industry imaginable, you can almost never stop learning as a researcher.
Of course.
So you learned about APRA through your internship. You started working for nonprofits. What led you down the road to Prospect Research Institute?
It was actually several years into my career as a prospect researcher when I was at the United Way. I was fortunate that the United Way was really adamant about professional development for its employees. And my manager there, Marla, encouraged me to take a course on preferably stock and SEC filings because I had a very rudimentary knowledge of how to analyze those. I just knew how to look at the annual report and kind of go from there, and that was it. So stock, especially, I'm not really a math and figures kind of person, so I really needed help on analyzing stock. I found out about the Prospect Research Institute through, I believe it was LinkedIn, because I was following you on LinkedIn.
Aha, that LinkedIn professional networking. We use it for so many things.
Of course.
That's great. And then, so now here you are, you're further along in your career, you're president of your APRA chapter. What advice maybe, or where do you see yourself going in the future as you leverage things like courses at the Institute and all kinds of opportunities in APRA?
I feel like within this field, and especially all the resources we have available to us, I just feel like the world is kind of my oyster, and I could see myself doing a few different things. I could see myself leading a prospect research shop. I could see myself maybe going over to the dark side into the private sector, maybe working in a corporate library, or even going back to my roots and seeking out a correctional services librarian type role. I'm definitely happy in prospect research, but you never know where it could take you.
So you're keeping all your skills sharp and
yes.
Thinking that you may have multiple careers.
Yes, I'm open to any opportunity.
Well, that's great. I feel the same way. We now have so many decades. We live much longer, and we need to earn for a much longer period of time. And when you have that foundation with information science, you really can go in so many different directions.
Right. I feel like the research skills and analyzing skills, that's something that can be applied to any sector or any type of organization or company. So I think as prospect researchers, having that base, we're extremely fortunate.
Well, before I let you go, I'm wondering if you have any tips for other researchers or people who want to be a researcher, how they could be more deliberate about their career path or how they could make a change.
So of course, I always have to recommend APRA and any other kind of professional organization in the field in which you see yourself. I off the top of my head, I know there's several APRA GNY members, APRA Greater New York members, who actually do not work in prospect research, but are trying to transition into it. So they're attending all the happy hours, they're attending all the workshops and learning a lot. And they said that APRA is integral to their transition into a prospect research role, even if they had zero kind of experience with it. I know one colleague, she came, I believe, from a marketing background, and she decided to go the prospect research way, and she joined APRA, it's a great first step in learning more about the field that you're trying to transition into. And of course, mentors. I'm fortunate. I've had two great mentors in my life who have led me to where I am today, but it could be your manager, it could be a professor. A great manager is someone who wants to see growth in their employee. So they shouldn't be afraid if you're interested in, another field or another organization. So they should nurture that growth.
And what about getting promoted? Do you have any tips for, because you've certainly moved forward in your prospect research career. How did you manage that? Was that on purpose? Did it just kind of evolve through your mentors, or what happened?
Well, I always have, I feel very comfortable with my managers, and I've always been open about what I want, and I've always asked them what they want from me and how we can work together for my growth. Like I said, a great manager is someone who's very interested in your growth. And so I've been fortunate in becoming close with my managers, and I consider them my mentors and friends, of course.
Well, that's wonderful advice. So when interviewing, maybe considering that you are also interviewing your potential manager and finding out, well, what happened to other people that have worked for them? And, that might open up, like, is this a manager who will support me no matter what? Or is this a manager who is a little less secure?
Of course. I think that's something that's pretty transparent. I think if you're going to have a great relationship with your manager, it's just going to click right away. It should definitely be apparent throughout the interview process.
Yes. Although I don't know, sometimes people are very amiable in an interview.
This is true.
On the other side of the fence, when I've done some interviews, it's been difficult to discern. But you sound like you're a pro, and maybe you have some of those relationship skills too that are so important for other professions.
I'm just not afraid of asking questions. I think some people perhaps think that would be a detriment to them if they ask too many questions, but I think it's actually definitely a pro. If you ask questions and are really interested in the answers, that's something that I think would be very helpful during the interview process.
Spoken like a true librarian. That's for sure.
Very similar to the reference process that reference librarians perform with their patrons.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. It was wonderful to learn about your career.
Great. Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
That was Marie Danieli, Assistant Director, Prospect and Donor Relations at Columbia Business School. It was great to hear how Marie used the Insider Stock and Compensation course at the Institute to build her research skill set, and her testimony on the power of association membership echoes many other Chat Bites guests. Because at the Institute, we consider ourselves the educational complement to APRA, our industry's association, providing you with a curriculum, homework, and instruction much like any other online university. Come check out our on-demand courses and pick a membership level that's right for you at www.prospectresearchinstitute.org. Until next time, cheers!